What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 5 tips for wide receivers to make sharper cuts at the top of the route and off the line of scrimmage with their press releases. So we're going to be showing good and bad examples of cuts at the top of the route and how wide receivers can learn from that and avoid those common mistakes that wide receivers love to make. But also, fellas, today only we are having a special Black Friday one-time offer. You can get all of our quarterback and wide receiver off-season training camps in 9 different cities for $50 off today only. So check out that very first link in the description below, an exclusive Black Friday offer only. The sale will end tomorrow. $50 off all of our camps. We're going to be coming to Houston, Texas. We're going to be coming to Tampa, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, Newark, New Jersey. We're going to be coming to Atlanta, Georgia, Dallas, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Nashville, Tennessee, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys are local to any one of those areas, interested in any of the camps that we have to put on, today only you can sign up for $50 off. So check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started with this video. So first route we're looking at here is from Kupp, and we're going to be talking about this rocker step, okay? So a rocker step, and then we're going to be showing a route from Renfro where it ultimately works, but he slips on the route, and we're going to talk about the 2 differences between the example. So first tip to make a sharper cut is your body has to go with the cut. Your hip needs to be attached to your foot, and what do I mean by that? So when Kupp's up here, he's working a rocker step, right? So what is a rocker step? Like if I were to run a 10-yard out route, a rocker step would be where I step to the outside first, then I throw back to the inside. So it's a 1-2. You want to step in the direction that you are going first. Now, what a lot of receivers don't understand is that a DB is going to be watching your body. He's watching that number. He's watching your hips. So wherever you move the hips, wherever you move the body, that's where that DB is going to move, right? A lot of guys will step far, but they keep their body square, and that's going to make you off balance, limit your explosiveness, and the DB is not going to bite on the brake. So we got to make sure that I bring my upper body with it. So you see when Kupp throws to the inside, or to the outside first, where does his body go? His body goes with the cut. His hip is attached to the cut. Now, especially when he throws back to the inside now, what does he do? His hip is attached to the cut. His body goes with the foot. That's how we stay in that balanced position when I'm actually stepping outside the DB's frame to get him off the platform. So the first thing that you need to do to make a sharper cut as a wide receiver and actually sell the cut is bring your body with the cut and make sure your hip is attached to your foot. You want to throw your hip no matter what cut it is. It's a post cut off of one step. It's a rocker step. It's a move off the line. That hip needs to throw with that cut foot. Okay, let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Kupp working this correct rocker step, bringing his hips and shoulders with the cut. Now we're looking at this route from Renfro. Same idea. He's working this rocker step with this 1-2, but again, he ends up slipping. Not a smooth route. It works to his advantage, right? But it's still, this DB probably should have recovered on it. And this obviously isn't a sharp cut. Now you see when he steps to the outside, he doesn't fully bring his hip with the cut leg. He's already so concerned with selling the inside move that he doesn't commit to the first step. And guess what happens? This cut's going to slip way outside because that cut is way outside of his frame, not because he stepped wide, like a lot of people like to say. A lot of people think that, oh, you never want to step this far outside because you're going to be off balance. Well, yeah, you're going to be off balance if you don't bring the upper half with the cut. That's what limits so many guys, is that they don't bring their body with it. They'll step super wide, but they're so concerned with either getting out of the break or selling the second move, whatever it is, that they don't commit with the cut. Their hip is not attached with the cut, and you see it slips outside of his frame. You can see the turf fly up here at the bottom of the screen. And then he's off balance. He should have probably tripped on this thing. DB should not have committed like how he did, but the cut obviously was not sharp simply because he didn't bring his body with the cut. So make sure, fellas, first tip to be a better cutter at the top of the route, or make sharper cuts, I should say, is to bring the hip and the body with every single step that you make, okay, to make sure we're in that balanced and explosive position. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Just make sure, like I said, attach the hip to that cut foot. Ultimately, it worked, but again, could have been a much smoother route like the Kupp route that we took a look at. Now, second tip that we got to focus on as a wide receiver to make a sharper cut, to make a more explosive cut, because explosion at the top of the route is what leads to that sharp break, because that explosion helps you create energy, and you being sudden with your feet is what will help you change direction at a tight angle, and that's staying committed to the break with your hips and your shoulders. So we're just looking at a single speed cut right here. So just a single cut off of one leg. This is going to be a post route, and it's against an inside shade DB. So we're going to be looking at 2 separate examples of this. This is a good example. Then we're going to talk about the bad example, right? So when you have an inside shade DB and you have to run a post, you want to attack the outside shoulder. My goal is to get him to flip his hips to the fade so I can slip underneath on a post. So the only way I can do that is commit to the break, right? But that will help you make a sharper cut. So let's watch this full speed. So this receiver goes with the tempo change, but you see how quick he's able to cut there, how much we're able to get that DB off the platform. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this like tempo skip on this specific route because this is like a bang 8 post, and a bang 8 post is a timing route, but we can all learn from that cut at the top of the break. So you see when he goes up into this thing, his hips and his shoulders, everything about this says vertical. Everything about this says fade, right? And that's what's going to get a DB to obviously bite on the route, but that almost tricks your mind into having to make this sudden cut and having to make that sudden break, right? So you see when he puts the brakes on, it's a very, very quick cut. It's a very explosive cut, and that's what helps you put the brakes on when you're going full speed. A lot of receivers can run full speed. Not a lot of receivers can change direction while running full speed, and this is the main thing that you have to do. You got to stay committed with your pad level, and you have to be sudden with your feet. And when you can be sudden with your feet, that will help you explode out. That'll help you slip underneath this DB right here, and then obviously create some energy to get back to the ball. So let's watch this thing full speed. Great job by this receiver staying committed, putting the brakes on, and not rounding the route out too soon. Okay, so now let's take a look at this example. Same coverage, inside shade off man. Got to run this post route. So again, second tip to be making sharper cuts as a wide receiver is you have to stay committed with your body language, right? So look at this receiver here. He ultimately gets covered because he doesn't sell the route long enough, but that cut is not explosive. That's a very rounded cut, right? So what did he do wrong? You see right before he starts to make this break, he's doing exactly what we were talking about. He's starting to turn the shoulder, starting to turn the hip, and then he puts the brakes on. Then he tries to cut off of this leg. But look at his body language. Everything about that body language is already selling post. Everything about his upper half is telling the DB exactly where he's running. So as a receiver, we got to make sure we do not do this. A, because it'll help you sell the route, but B, your cut will be a much sharper cut because it has to be the thing that changes direction for you. When you're already changing direction with your upper body, that cut is going to be very weak. So make sure, fellas, that and obviously he does a great job leading into it. We're starting to get that DB to open up the gate, and then he starts to give it away. As soon as this starts to turn, and as soon as he starts to slow down because of the turn, DB will speed turn, and we'll be all over that thing. So we have to stay committed, and you have to trust that cut leg to make it a sharper cut. So second tip to get smoother cuts at the top of the route, make sure that we stay committed to the break, and I pop this thing right off. Let's watch it again, full speed one more time. Trust your cut leg, fellas. Do not round with your pad level to get out of the break quicker, okay? All right, so now this release that we're talking about, this is going to be a diamond release here, and it's going to be off of kind of the same concept as this post, that like single cut. But the next thing we're going to talk about is pad level going into the break. So a lot of guys can stay committed to the break, but a lot of guys will pop their chest up because they start to prepare, they start to slow down, and they try to get out of this route. So this is a great example of two diamond release slants. First one's going to be the good example. Second one will be the bad example of how you guys can keep a good pad level and how that can give you a sharper cut over the middle. So let's watch it full speed. So we're looking at this route here, and again, great job keeping that chest forward, not exposing those numbers, right? Everything that we talk about on this channel, fellas, all comes down to one thing, selling fade, right? So the third tip to get a sharper cut is you have to sell fade and you have to have good pad level. So when this receiver gets up into this route, we're trying to sell goal line fade. We're trying to sell like he's pushing up vertical and going to go run an out route, a comeback route, whatever it is. So you see how his pad level is slightly shifted forward. He's not exposing his number. This is the spot that we want to get to. This is the explosive spot that makes that DB think, oh shit, I don't want to get beat over the top. And again, that's going to help you make that sharper cut because it almost tricks your body into thinking, okay, the only way I can get out of this break is by being super explosive with that step. And obviously, ankle stability, knee stability, leg strength all ties into that. However, you being able to have that good pad level will force you into having to make that specific cut and have to make that cut inside of your frame. You cannot reach out for a break and drag the back foot when you have good pad level. You just simply can't do it. So third tip to have a sharper cut at the top of the route, off the line, whatever it is got to make sure that my pad level is good. Got to make sure that my pad level is straight because that will sell the route, but also give you a more sudden break out of there, okay? So now, same idea. Looking at a diamond release slant here, same kind of coverage, inside shade. We want to attack the outside, get the DB to bite on the fade, but this is an example of not so good pad level where this DB or this receiver raises his chest to take away that explosion and take away that burst from the cut. So let's watch it full speed. So he kind of comes off here, chest is up in the air, leaning back on those heels, and you see DB is all over this thing. So he comes off, gives a little skip release, then bursts upfield. And you see how his chest is straight up in the air and his feet go out ahead of him. You never want your feet to be ahead ahead of your chest. You never want your toes to be ahead of your nose, if you will. You always want to get your nose over your toes or your chest over your knees somewhat so you can make that break. And I'm not saying be hunched over, because if you're hunched over, you can't open up your stride, but you never want to be leaning back, because as soon as you lean back, you don't have explosion. It is not a sharp cut. And even if you sell the route correctly, this DB or this receiver took the correct release. He got the DB off the platform. He got his hips to open up a little bit. But when we start to slow down, I start to give the route away, and my cut is not explosive and not sharp simply because I raised my pad level. DB is going to be all over this thing. He works this situation all the time. So if we get him prepared for the situation by raising my pad level and slowing down, he's going to be all over this route. So we got to make sure that I'm selling the route, number one, and my pad level is good. Okay. So the third tip to get sharper cuts as a wide receiver: do not raise your pad level. Don't expose your number. Stay in an explosive pad level position. Let's watch the thing again, full speed. Just got to make sure I keep my chest forward. Got to make sure I don't expose that number to the DB. Okay. So now let's talk about how you can get more explosive routes on a comeback route. So we don't have a bad example of this route because it's pretty self-explanatory, but this route is all about being violent with your hips. So anytime you guys are snapping down on a comeback, a curl, a dig, a stop route, the only way you can make a sharp cut is by A, getting low, but B, being violent. Okay, so let's watch this thing full speed. So many receivers struggle with this, and I think it's just a lot of times because receivers don't do the correct drills and exercises to develop that like explosiveness and that fast twitch muscle fiber. But at the top of the route, fellas, if you guys want to make a tight cut, right? Like, what is a sharp cut? Like, let's say you're running a comeback route, and let's say you have to let's say there's like an energy lane at the top of the break. Let's say there's like 3 cones. This is what I do with my receivers. We set up 3 cones and we have them run comebacks down this lane. The only way you make that change of direction right there is by A, getting low, but if you want any kind of energy and any kind of explosiveness to get to the end of this lane fast and beat the DB out of this route, you have to be violent with your hips. You got to have a violent drop. It's almost like you got a string attached to your chin and somebody's pulling that string down. That's how we want to think of it. So top of the route, you see right here, to make a sharper cut when you snap down, we actually have to drop my butt down. I actually have to bring my chin to my knee. And that first step, that trigger step as they like to call it, it is a violent step. And when you can do that violent step, you see how much time and how much space we get from the DB, but also we take that sharp angle out of the break. As so many receivers aren't violent with their hips and they drift out of the route. They never make a tight change of direction, but when you're violent at the break point, you could get back on that 45-degree angle and go. So make sure it's like a string is attached to your chin. You're pulling the string down, but you're not just bending at the waist. You're actually dropping your butt, dropping your hips to get to that low position to where I can make that sharp cut. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by this receiver, showing a perfect example of how you guys can drop into the break and get out of a route. Okay, so now, 5th tip. So that was the 4th tip to make sharper cuts, is to drop your hips violently and actually get low. The 5th tip to get more explosive off the line of scrimmage is you have to make sure you are striking the ground in the proper position, okay? You got to strike the ground on the arch of your foot, not the heels, not the toes, because that won't give you any explosion. So this is Lawrence Kager here. So we're going to talk about how he's able to throw his hip, but also strike on the ground correctly to accelerate out of the break. Because, hey, anybody can get the DB to jump, right? Anybody can get the DB here. Anybody could step wide enough. Anybody could sell the route enough, like we were talking about at the very beginning, bring their hip and their shoulders with the cut. But can you get out of the break with speed to widen the distance with the DB and yourself and win the race to the ball? You want to think of every single route as a race to the ball, race to the break point. How can I get out of the break faster than the DB, right? And so you got to make sure that we are striking the ground correctly to get some explosion. So you see when Kager goes to make this throw, his weight's on the arch of his foot. He's not on his heels. So many receivers strike on the heels because they feel like it'll slow them down. Guess what that does? Your pad level's going backwards, and when you try to burst out of it, when you try to push off of this cut leg, you're going to pop up in the air and you lose explosion. It's like you have to start, stop, and then start again. But you want to start and create energy and keep the same speed or explosion into the break as you have out of the break, right? So when I strike the ground, he's not on his toes either. So when guys strike the ground on their toes, what's going to end up happening is they're going to be falling forward. They're so concerned with having a good pad level that they'll fall forward. You want to strike the ground on the arch, and then when you get out of the break, you want to push off the inside arch. That's why he's got like this 45-degree shin angle right here. Now, you're not going to hurt yourselves, fellas. I know what everybody's thinking. Oh, that puts a lot of stress on your knee. That puts a lot of stress push on your ankle. It doesn't if you do it correctly. If you bring your hip and shoulders with the cut, like we talked about, you're going to be in a position inside of your frame. If you strike the ground on the arch, then push off the inside arch, you're going to be fine. What so many guys will do is they'll strike the ground on the inside arch. They'll strike the ground on the inside part of your foot. And yes, that puts a ton of stress on that knee. But when you strike the ground on the arch of your foot, on the arch, and then you push off the inside arch, so it's arch, then push off the inside arch, that gives you that efficient strike of the ground, and that will help you get out of the route a little bit smoother without putting a ton of stress on your knee, right? So that's what we got to do. So fifth tip, to have a more sharp cut off the line of scrimmage, sharp cut in general as a wide receiver. This goes for any move at the top of the route, rocker, step, whatever. Strike on that arch of your foot so we could have some explosion and we could be able to push out of the break efficiently. Let's watch the thing again, full speed. Great job by Kager throwing off this platform to get that DB2 jump. All right, guys, we want to thank you for watching. Again, if you guys are interested in one of our 9 off-season camps, we're going to be coming to Tampa, Florida, Houston, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Newark, New Jersey, Atlanta, Georgia, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Chicago, Illinois, and Los Angeles, California. $50 off Black Friday sale today only. Check out that very first link in the description below. Sign up, get your spot. Spots are limited as well, but you can get it today for $50 off. Very first link in that description below. And if you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. I'll see you guys next time.